Just gotta do it. Oh boy. Well, welcome back to the podcast, everybody. It's episode 26. I'm joined by Snazzy Bastard, Eat Your Meats, and Hylian Pickles. It's been a couple weeks since we've done this. We're all pretty rusty. Did I miss anything? Everybody's here. We're in good shape.
How does podcast?
I think we're all here, yeah.
The IQ podcast.
I've forgotten how to talk into a microphone. It's just crazy.
There's a video, there's a microphone. We're good to go.
Oh, man. Okay. So today we're going to be discussing authority, what it means to be a streamer and have authority as a streamer, the different aspects of your authority as a streamer. In some ways, the word authority is going to take on a bit of a double meaning here. I think what we should do first is maybe define terms a little bit so that while we have this discussion, it makes sense. Otherwise, we may be talking about different things. So first, the two things that I want to kind of get a definition of is authority and something that seems like an authoritative position. It's a word that's similar, but I think where a lot of confusion comes in is actually the word confidence. So I'm going to throw this to Meats first. I want you give us a general definition of what you think authority means. Let's start with trying to nail down what the word authority means. Do you have what do you think of when I say the word authority?
I think there's a positive and a negative connotation, but I think by and large, authority has a lot to do with control, right? So what kind of control and ability to dictate what's going on in your space, right? So if you command authority, you're able to change the scenario or guide the community or move things in the direction that you dictate. And that's a
good start. Hey, I just want to get a framework of reference first. So, okay, Pickles, do you have what do you think of for authority?
Who's in charge?
True.
I mean, if you just want like my quick off the cuff answer, that's what it is.
Yeah, that's good. And Snazzy?
I would Pickles on my answer. It's who's in charge, right?
Yeah.
Like who runs the show, right?
Yeah.
Who's the boss?
Who's the boss?
Who wears the boss pants?
Yeah.
On the stream, right? So, it's largely to me, it's more tied with responsibility. It's like who is responsible for. Well, okay, I mean, so my answer got stolen, so I stole yours. So clearly, it's
yeah, that would be what I would say is responsibility. It's about shouldering a burden. That especially in this context of being a streamer, what are you responsible for? What are your responsibilities? Like your authority doesn't really have a bigger scope than that in some ways as a streamer, because that then you're just like ego. We're not talking about like an egomaniac or just like, oh, I'm like the final authority. Like we don't, that's not what we mean when we're talking about this. In fact, that's danger territory when it comes to this kind of thing. And I think a lot of streamers probably struggle with where to balance this. Like I've seen streamers who go way too far and act like the crazy final authority for everything. And like their word is, the word of God kind of situation, or streamers who don't want any responsibility whatsoever. They just like want to turn their stream on and then like have a really kind of toxic relationship with their own growth and their stream because they
allow chaos to reign.
Yeah, and they don't want to have responsibility for what it is, what happens, and then they also get upset that it's not what they want it to be. So this is actually I think a lot of people are like, why are you even talking about this? And number one, we want people to be able to kind of think about what they're doing more deeply. If you're a streamer and you don't think about these things, then and you're just kind of tossing it up to I'm just going to be entertaining and be fun, you're kind of missing like a key aspect of growth areas. And one of the things I think that people don't like this word, but I'm going to use it. You're an influencer on some level. Like, I know it sounds.
I just heard snazzy gag.
Yeah, that was me.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
My own.
Why don't we like this word? Can I redeem it? Can we talk about why we don't like it, and then I can try to redeem it? Let's do that.
To be fair, the only reason I don't like it is because other people use it dumbly. It's a perfectly cromulent word.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the stereotype of an influencer being someone who uses visual and low-level entertainment value to sell products or to get stuff for free. But influencer is a much more nebulous term than that. It's just how you perceive it and how you utilize the term influencer. Because you're absolutely right. You're portraying something, you're talking about something in front of a group of people that, look up to you potentially. And what you say can influence what they do. So you are an influencer.
Yeah. Ty, is this a word that makes you uncomfortable?
No, because I understand it on that same level, right? Like, because it's one of those things you hear influencer, so you think like Instagram fitness models and stuff like that trying to sell you Kind bars or something. But I mean, like, by its strictest definition, we all kind of influence each other on a day-to-day basis, right? So that is what it amounts to.
That's really actually the biggest aspect of this for me that I think people miss. Your friends influence you. Life is influential. We rub off on each other. And like, I don't know, when I was growing up, my best friends and we came up with like weird phrases that we said, words, noises, funny things that we would say to each other. I think we all still do that to some degree. So I think we influence each other. And so like, if you're going to be a streamer who has any significant following, you're going to be some sort of influence. And this is a like level 1 basic authority. This isn't even like this is just like, if you have an audience, you are now responsible for what that audience hears and what you produce in your content. That's your responsibility. So I don't know. I think this is actually something that I think subconsciously scares people away from actually being successful on stream. That they don't really want that responsibility, and so they self-sabotage. Like, they get a big raid and then they like freeze up, and it's because maybe they have like this weird imbalance subconsciously between what they really want and what's really happening. Because we all know that once you have a big audience, you have a bunch of people on you, it's not just them judging you. You're now like kind of responsible for this new relationship that you have with each person. And if you don't like yourself very much, that can kind of like be a mental block. I had this when I was struggling when I first started streaming. I say this because I've dealt with this, where I didn't like myself enough to really want the position of being a big streamer. So I think like a lot of streamers really got to ask themselves hard questions. Do I really want this? Right? Do I want the responsibility of hundreds of people in my life that look up to me and listen to me? And like, because you have the microphone. Chat doesn't they get to type. It's completely imbalanced, the relationship. Okay, so let's turn this around onto the other difficult word in this space, and I think that word is confidence. What is confidence? Anybody?
Confidence is your ability to have the people around you interpret what you're doing as something that you're comfortable doing and you're very sure of. I think confidence can be something that is personally mimicked and can be kind of created. It's a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So just because you may not feel confident, you can learn how to exude confidence and over time become more confident.
True.
And I think a lot of people struggle with that idea of, well, I just don't feel confident. Learn.
Yeah. Confidence is important.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
But
As they say.
Confidence is not authority, right? There's no like burden with confidence. There's no like, what are you responsible for? Like, and I think a lot of people confuse like being confident with being an authority, because they like, it's like a fake it till you make it kind of thing, and gives you the idea that you now have this authoritative voice and speech and stuff like that, and they're not the same thing.
Yeah, you can say the stupidest thing in the world with the most confidence. People may or may not believe you, but they'll still be like, he's pretty confident about that really dumb opinion that person has.
Yeah.
Confidence can certainly feed into authority. It could make you seem more authoritative than you perhaps should be if you are extremely confident in how you deliver yourself, right?
Yeah.
You could sort of enhance your authority, if you will, with a certain amount of confidence.
Yeah, it's like a partner to it rather than like equivalent, you know?
Yeah.
They're not the same.
No.
You're not really, you can't make dinner with confidence. I mean, you can, but not with confidence alone. You need to like actually make the food, right? You need to like get the ingredients out and prepare the food.
Really weird metaphor, but okay, we'll run with it. It's fine.
You can't just be confident that dinner's going to happen.
But you can be confident that if you mess up, you can you can call a takeout place and
so
sub.
I have a child, and there have been times where they try to do something, right? Or they perform an act, and it is just terrible. It is not competent, right?
Sure.
But the sheer just pride and confidence and just like, look at me and look what I did is just impressive.
We can probably all learn from
True.
children sometimes,
True.
honestly.
Oh, for sure we can.
Because children don't have that like self-awareness to be embarrassed enough.
True.
Yes. I think you do have it, unless you are truly an expert, you do have to have a level of like poor self-awareness if you're really confident in something that you're not.
And in every space, there's authorities that like have the credentials and everything that they should in order to be someone that's authoritative, and they're wrong. In every space, you've got people with like everything backing them, and they're completely wrong. So like, and that's why there's debates in pretty much every scientific and research field. You've got people who with the right credentials, and they don't agree on any of it. So it's, this whole balance of authority and confidence is difficult, because like at the end of the day, confidence doesn't replace authority, and authority doesn't replace confidence. They both have to be kind of in a good balance for you. So why are we really talking about all of this? It's like, what's the point? Well, I think there's a good space. There's a good place for streamers to grow their stream with confidence by becoming an authority. And I feel like this is the thing that most streamers are kind of like, not. Yeah, I'll deal with that in a minute. This is a space where I feel like there's plenty of room in like game categories and game selection and being a streamer to be an authority. And that's the thing that can help you like stand out and help you become more, I don't know, what's the word? I don't know, give you the weight. When you pick up a burden,
Gravitas, the prestige.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like this is the thing that's harder for people to kind of grasp and get their minds around a little bit, for growing your stream. Authority is like one of the key areas that a stream can grow around. What do you guys think about that?
Yes, in so much that without it, you can only get so far, right? The sort of authoritative type thing is a plateau, in my opinion. Like you can get pretty far by ignoring authority and running away from it as fast as humanly possible, right? But then at some point, you're going to hit that plateau where you're not going to go any further unless you do become more authoritative, and you kind of embrace that responsibility, right, of being a larger streamer, a bigger entertainer, a larger content creator, whatever you want to, whatever you want to call yourself. It's kind of like the whole, if we take the fake it till you make it analogy, it's like at some point you have to make it, right? You have to make it.
True.
You have to take that last step to make it and stop faking it, right? So,
well, if we treat authority like it's responsibility, what are you responsible for? Are you running tournaments? Are you what is it that you're offering to your community or the greater Twitch community? Like, where does your authoritativeness lie? I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess it really depends on the context of what you're talking about, because I think that a large successful streamer must at least have authority over their content and their community. But if you're like the authority on Alex Trebek trivia, that's probably not going to get you very far.
Okay,
right?
So this is why it's important. You're right. That's 100% right. And so when we're talking about authority, we don't mean what we mean is responsibility is a better way of looking at it. What do you take responsibility for on your stream? So where are the categories of responsibility for a streamer that you think sometimes get like subverted by people and they don't really want to take responsibility for? It's a hard question.
I think it can be tied back into what we've talked about before with streamer roles, right? Where if you are the educator role for games, you have the responsibility to some degree of providing thoughtful information. So if you're one of those people that's like, hey, in Elden Ring, if you just jump off a cliff, your souls will come back or whatever. I haven't played it yet, but you start saying things that aren't actually true, you start to lose authority. Right. So you have to be thoughtful about that. If you're a friend trope, if you will, if you start being rude or if you start, mistreating your community, you start to lose that authority there. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think it really depends on the role of your authority. If that makes sense. And I don't think that having a niche authority, unless it has a big audience with a small number of authoritative figures, can necessarily really benefit people, frankly.
Yeah. The first place people as a streamer are responsible for is their content, right? What they're producing. Like what are you putting out there in the world as a stream, and what are people consuming? What are they watching? What is that first like base content layer? Like what is the content of your stream? And that's where a lot of streamers don't even want to take responsibility for that, right? like what game are we playing today, chat?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, yeah. Because we've already kind of talked about passing that off to chat as being like a bad thing, but it's when you give chat that much agency, you lose the authority over your stream, and then it becomes their stream and not yours anymore. So you kind of lose control. And when you need that control, when you need to take action or have your authority back, you can't do that. It becomes just kind of the Wild West, and you're part of it.
Yep.
Yeehaw.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's like when in terms of responsibility, right? It's where a lot of streamers trip themselves up when they do start moving away from being the very bottom of the rung, right? Let's say you have a couple viewers now, your community slowly getting built up. You have this momentum, right? And a lot of streamers, I think, feel then that they have to just stick to whatever they have, because that was the formula that was working. But like in truth, your responsibility now lies in refining that formula, in growing while maintaining, a sense of who you are. And I think a lot of people just that's kind of scary, right? In a lot of ways for people, so they'll default back to like, well, I've been streaming like this for months. It's worked so far. I'm like, and yeah, that's true, but like, are you really getting anywhere, or are you just cycling through the same 10 viewers because you're afraid to change anything about your stream?
Yeah,
Well,
you're afraid to take that responsibility to walk forward, right? As opposed to just being sedimentary.
Because you lack confidence.
Well, that's possibly a facet of it. That might be one of the reasons why somebody refuses to, like you said, like sort of self-sabotage themselves in a way. They refuse to take those next steps, possibly because they don't feel confident enough that that they'll succeed or that they can.
Yeah, I mean, I do have I know somebody who self-sabotages in that sense quite a bit. Like they know what to do, what they can do, but they lack the confidence to do it because if you don't do it, you can't fail, right?
I think there's another mechanism, like a psychological mechanism that can happen too. This concept called the locus of control, where if you have an internal locus of control, you are confident that the things that you do are influenced by your own decisions and the outcomes are influenced by the things that you do. Where if someone adopts a purely external locus of control, they say, well, it's not my fault. Chat just didn't show up. Or it's not my fault. Chat decided the game, right?
Yeah.
So you have to balance that out a little bit. You can't have 100% internal or 100% external locus of control. But I think people that sort of dodge that responsibility or inclined to kind of blame, if you will, their community, adopt that external locus of control. Well, I did what I was supposed to do and just no one liked it or no one showed up or, they made bad choices. It's not my fault, right? And I think with authority and with confidence, you have to adopt a more internalized locus of control there. And that's harder to do. That's scarier because you're ultimately the one that's responsible for what happens.
Is that logos? Logos?
Locus.
Locus?
Like Locus,
Okay.
Locus.
Locus.
It looks like mumbo jumbo. Sorry.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify for everybody because it sounded like back and forth.
Locus of control.
Yeah. So, I've seen a lot of streamers do the pass the buck thing where they don't want to have, they don't want to have really responsibility for anything, and then they get really upset that their stream isn't growing. And like nobody's responsible for your stream's growth more than you are. As a content creator, as the streamer, it's your stream. Every aspect, every facet of what you're doing impacts your growth, your choices. And if you're not making choices, or you're like removing all of the control over your stream to other people, then that's still your decision. Like you're still having a negative impact on your growth. It's not other people's fault. So.
And you'll see that a lot too. There's a lot of people, and specifically when it comes to Twitch streaming, who are they're always on external platforms, bashing Twitch and then talking about how Twitch is doing all these things that don't help my discoverability and don't help the small streamer get found and all that. And it's like, no, it's just you're not taking a really analytical, critical look at yourself, which again is one of your responsibilities as the captain of the ship. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to look inward. You have to be able to retrospective. Like you gotta look through yourself with somewhat of a critical lens. Otherwise, you won't know that you're maybe doing something wrong. You won't figure out that you're not growing if you never look at your numbers, right? Mm-hmm. So,
yep. Like on one level, I think most streamers already know this. This is like we're kind of preaching to the choir a little bit for the most active and thoughtful people, mindful people of their stream. But we also want people to like just double check with themselves over all this stuff. Make sure you're thinking about it actively and not just like hoping that you've got your bases covered or like confident that it's right. You do want to kind of take your time, think about this stuff. If your stream isn't growing, don't try to externalize it too much. Maybe internalize what's going on. What are the initial thing? What's consistent? The consistent thing about your stream is you. Right? So
I don't know. I don't feel very consistent.
Hope, right?
But you are always there.
Yeah. So ultimately, the streamer is just you. What we're trying to say is take the responsibility for your stream. Like it's not like a passive thing. This isn't like, oh, I'm responsible. That's how your room gets messy, right? Like if you take responsibility, it's the difference between cleaning your room because you're responsible for it and living in your room and feeling responsible for your room. What we're saying as a streamer is you kind of want to take care of your stream. You want to have not a passive approach to what's going on with your channel, with your stream. You want to take as much responsibility as you can over everything, and try not to actually give responsibility away, because what will happen is people in your stream will walk all over you, or at worst, and at best they'll be the ones that it's their stream. And I don't do you want that? I mean, maybe you want that. Twitch plays you. Is that what
Well, I mean, even there are a lot of people who do like shows like that where chat kind of controls the stream, but it's through a filter that still
you
has
set
the
up.
Streamer, yeah, the streamer
Right.
still has full authority in that situation.
Right.
So,
You're giving chat the illusion of control at that point, not
Exactly.
actual
Yeah,
control.
that's
the
different.
illusion of control is like incredibly
That's a robot.
useful.
You built a robot that chat can play with,
Yeah.
which
But I think
has. Go ahead.
It's also important to realize that there are things that are not in your control. Because I think, too, if you're someone who is trying to exert control over every aspect of your stream, that's not going to work either. Right? You have to realize that you can't control who reads you. You can't control, a lot of aspects. Well, I guess you could just control who reads you, but you know what I mean? In general,
Yeah.
theoretically, if you do over control all of that, sometimes it ends up being more problematic than helpful, right? So there are levels of control, but you can't control who clicks on you and who stays versus goes. You can do things to improve those odds, but at the end of the day, 5 people can do the exact same thing, and there can be a wild difference between just the luck of the draw, right? So it's almost like, I don't want to bring up like the serenity prayer, but it is kind of like that, right? Where it's like, I will change the things I can, and I'll recognize that there are things that I can't change.
But that's even
both of those things.
more of a reason to take control where you have it. Right, because
Yes,
you have.
I agree.
Like, if you give up the control you can have, now you're really out of control.
Yes.
Well, it's also like while there are things such as, for example, right, you can't control who raids you, right? But you can control how you react to it. You can control. You can have systems in place that help you deal with things going perhaps not the way you want them to, right? If you have somebody who's disruptive, hopefully you have a plan to deal with that. if somebody comes in and is trying to take over the stream and is making everyone else feel uncomfortable, you should have a plan on how to deal with that person, right? If you get raided by I know it's probably not going to happen for most of us, but if you get raided by somebody who brings in 1,000 or 2,000 people, you have to have a plan for that. However small that chance is, you gotta be ready in case something like that happens.
and that's where confidence comes in.
Yeah, and that'll help you with everything else, because if you're ready to be rated by somebody who has 500 viewers, then you're definitely ready to be rated by somebody who has 20 viewers or 10 viewers or 1 viewer. It's all part of the same sort of system, and it's just knowing how you react to certain situations gives you an element of control in what would otherwise be an uncontrollable environment.
And at the end of the day, it's your stream, it's your content. If your choice is to relinquish control completely, at least do it from that perspective of what you're doing. It shouldn't be like a byproduct of your lack of choice. It should be a conscious choice, and you should also know what the benefits of that choice or the detriments of that choice are. If you let chat choose every game that you play because that's what you want to do with your stream and your content, you should at the very least know that there's a sacrifice there in this space of control that you're giving over, and this could severely hurt your exposure on Twitch because you're not making a decision based upon using category selection for growth or putting yourself in a place where people can find you. You're letting chat just randomly say, play Fortnite, play League of Legends, play Call of Duty, or whatever it is. And if that's what you want your stream to be, so be it. But you should, I think, at the very least, be informed. Make the conscious decision from not an ignorant position, but like an informed position. Okay, so let's talk more about other aspects of the streamer's control, what they have authority and responsibility for. One of the things that was brought up when we were kind of planning this episode was rules and boundaries. So what are the rules and boundaries? What's this space? How do you define what that means? What are the rules and boundaries for streaming?
Well, I think it just depends on who you are. Because all of our streams are like a little bit different.
Are there rules and boundaries that we all share?
Yeah, it's called TOS.
Yeah.
Sorry, but
specifically that. I just meant more also, like the flavor of our streams is different.
Also, I think most of us can agree that, hurtful language, sexist language, racist language, that kind of thing is usually not going to fly on most people's streams, right? There are some things that are not necessarily against TOS that I think most streamers would be uncomfortable to have in their chat just running loose, right? So what level of uncomfort makes you act on stuff is different for everybody, but there's always a line, and you can always guarantee, you can always rely on chat to eventually cross that line. So you have to be ready to deal with that one.
People going to be people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when we say TOS, technically we usually don't mean TOS. We actually mean community guidelines, which is a completely larger scope of information than just the TOS is a lot of more legal stuff. But then the community guidelines do cover a lot of, I think, pretty much all the stuff that we generally would want to keep out of those spaces. The toxic nature of the internet, not just Twitch, but the internet in general, that creeps in your community on Twitch, is a good place to start seeing where and understanding the rules and boundaries that you do have. But then there's also rules and boundaries. That's like the rules and boundaries of your stream. We all also have probably personal rules and boundaries, right? Like me, for instance, I don't want to come to stream without certain preparation in place. I wouldn't want to start this podcast without my rules and boundaries go further than what you may see when you see content like this, right? A general rule and boundary we've kind of set up is let's make sure we have at least a topic that we all want to talk about, and I want to break it down into ideas so that we're somewhat prepared to have a broadcast like this or a discussion like this.
And I laughed because I showed up and I was like, what are we talking about?
And some of us don't want to be too drunk on stream, even if it's just people get that drunk or worse on stream. Some of it, we all have kind of our own personal rules and boundaries. So are these things that you guys think through, or, I mean, obviously can't come up with them all. It's like a developmental thing, right? Over time. Right. The more you stream, the more you realize I don't want to do that on stream, or I don't want to. Yeah. This is kind of one of those things that you can't turn your first stream on and know everything about your personal rules and boundaries. But I think it is a good idea to kind of have a good, picture of what those things should be for you as a streamer. What do you cuss? Do you not cuss? Do
you swear?
Yeah, what is the boundary for language on your stream? What is the boundary for topics on your stream? Do you want to be able to talk about most? I say most because it's getting harder to talk about things online. Most things, like the stuff that's safe to talk about still can be really edgy. How edgy do you want your stream to be? How edgy, because these things have a kind of a secondary effect that you don't see until it's too late. Like if you're like a meme lord and you just make like really cringy, horrible, crude jokes all the time, and you've got like crude content on your stream, there is going to be kind of a secondary effect to that. And you may not even think, I'm gathering people that like things in this subject, in this category, and that's a certain kind of person, right?
Yeah, well, like also, that idea is back, like when I said the difference between doing something ironically and unironically is that you're still doing it. So
yep.
people who are attracted to that, whether they're attracted to it ironically or not, are still going to show up. So you have to deal with both sides of that, regardless of your intent or your original intent with it.
And also, like, just when you make the choice to, behave a certain way, right, and it allows certain behaviors, right, that does also have the effect of that, like that, it affects what people, or rather, it affects which people can't watch your stream as well. I mean, like a literal example, right? If somebody who watches your stream, and they watch at home and they have little kids at home, and all of a sudden you start being really raunchy on stream, they might not be able to watch your stream anymore if up to that point you weren't doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If up to that point you were kid safe and kid friendly, and then all of a sudden you flip that around and you're edgelord, meme lord, whatever, right?
Right.
There's a certain group certain part of your audience that you just kind of push away when you do that, right?
This is true. Go ahead. You guys have stuff.
This is kind of to piggyback off of what Snazzy was saying. This is kind of an interesting one too, where you have to think about your visuals as well as your audio.
Yep.
Right. Because, for example, there's a streamer that I really enjoy watching that I used to be able to listen to with in-ears. But then the raunchiness started to transfer over to visual as well. And now I can't watch this person when my child is around, right?
Yeah.
It used to be like you could kind of get away with it because they can't hear what's being said. Mm-hmm. So you have to really think about where those inputs are coming from as well, right? Because a lot of people might have it in the background with their ears in listening. So if you're cursing a little bit here and there, that's still kind of child okay for a lot of people because the child's not hearing it. But if they peek over at your phone or whatever and they see something they shouldn't be seeing, that can add another layer too.
Yeah, these are complex, and it goes beyond even that. Like, I'll make it something that seems benign, speed running, right? If you've made it a thing, like a boundary for your stream, so there's perceived boundaries. That's kind of what I'm going to get here too. Like, you may not think that as a speed running streamer, like you're speed running whatever, Bloodborne, okay? And you may not think that this is a boundary. You may think when I'm done speedrunning Bloodborne for the year, like I'll do it for a year and then I'll go speedrun some other game. But what you might have done with this decision is actually artificially created a boundary for your viewer. Now, your viewer may, when they see you not speedrunning Bloodborne, not watch your stream anymore. And I've seen this happen with people get partnered off of speed running X game, and then they start to speed run a different game, and their viewership drops off, and they go back to try to do it with Souls or whatever, and they can't get their audience back. So there's a lot of like areas of rules and boundaries that gets kind of transferred between you the streamer, and the viewers. Because they might think you're this kind of streamer. Like, you're not going to... Maybe you'll say a raunchy joke once in a while, but you're not going to show something on stream. But then, like, you push the boundary to the visual side, like Meets is saying, and now can't watch anymore. Or you're something as benign as speed running Bloodborne, and then all of a sudden you don't speed run Bloodborne anymore, and now this is a boundary that you've kind of like passed, and your viewer doesn't cross over with you. So this is a hard one. This is a hard one for most streamers.
Yeah, and I'd like to bring up another concept of boundaries that we haven't really touched upon either, and that's your boundaries as an individual person with a private life. And I think that is something also that is very streamer specific. But I've definitely run into people on the internet that maybe overshare or provide more personal details that, just thinking about personal security and the security of your family and your location and like thinking about those types of boundaries. People don't always do that. And remember that you don't know everyone on the internet. So thinking about how much personal information, I'm not saying like, hey guys, my social security number, but like people can figure stuff out. And yes, a lot of times if they really want to, they can find you. But, giving information about your family or your exact location or, where you went for dinner and what you ate can sometimes be risky. And we don't always think about that.
True.
Yeah.
Very, very true. Yeah.
My name is so like specific and unique that I just never even bothered trying to hide it.
And like I said, it's just something to think about too. And I think, if you have a family, for example, maybe that can play into it, or if you've had a history of issues, that can play into it, and being more deep in terms of personal stuff. Sometimes that can foster more of that parasocial relationship because they feel like they know you more. And that can potentially be problematic too. So just thinking about how you create your personal boundary from other people too. Like if you're walking down a hallway at a day job, are you comfortable saying what you're hearing here? Think about it,
It's hard. It's hard.
It's walking up to a stranger, telling them about your, gynecologist appointment. Is that really what you want to be talking about? Maybe, but just like think about it. Think about it.
But it's also like and also just sharing where you work can have potentially negative side effects, right? If somebody decides that they're gonna f with you in some way, right? If they know where you work, it's a lot easier to do that. Than if they don't know where you work, right? Or if they don't know where you live, or if they don't know who you associate with, necessarily. There is, I definitely agree with Meets that there's a lot of people who too easily give up a lot more information than they should. And again, that's one of those personal boundaries. It's like if somebody's being really intrusive and is, trying to fish out all these answers from you, right? Like, why are they doing that? Like, what is their end goal in trying to find this information out? And for some things, maybe you're the kind of person who doesn't care, right? Maybe you live alone, whatever. You live in an apartment somewhere you're renting. You don't care about what happens to you're like, whatever, that's fine. If that's how you want to live, that's your life. But most people, don't want to expose themselves to that kind of risk. And like me said, you don't know everybody on the internet, and you also don't know who's watching, right? There could be people watching that don't say anything.
True.
That very well use that information in a very detrimental way. One example that I personally use on my own stream is I don't like to talk about age. It's not actually specifically against the rules to talk about your age, but if you are on the younger side and you start admitting that in a stream chat, you don't know who's watching. You don't know what what bad actor might be peeking on the stream at that time, and then all of a sudden, then you'll get a DM from somebody who's like seems like maybe they're being friendly, but really what they are is a predator, right? You don't know that. So my rule on stream is we don't talk about age, especially if you're younger. I don't want to know. I don't want to know how old you are. Keep that to yourself.
That's a hard one. Yeah, because you have to ban somebody if they say they can't even joke, right? And there's bots now set up to if you get reported for saying you're underage, I'm not 13, I'm under 13, and Twitch will like completely ban your account just for making the joke. So don't joke about that. They're like
Pro tip.
it's I don't know. Anyway, one of the other things I wanted to kind of hit on with this is that it can be really difficult to execute your boundaries with your community. The boundaries you set up might cause friction. This is, I guess, kind of a warning, not to tell you not to like not keep your boundaries. I'll give you an example. It's easier this way. But
Yep.
in my Discord, I have a channel for hanging out, right? So people can just like hang out, play video games, talk. And I had a rule: no streaming, no recording. Like, you would think this doesn't need to be said, but it definitely needs to be said.
Always needs to be said.
So, I have a rule in my Discord: if you're gonna hang out in the chilling chat, because there was a time where it was a lot of us in there, and we were just like, kind of talking. People talk. They talk about what's going on in their life. They talk about more personal things, stuff that you would typically maybe not want to share on a stream. Mm-hmm. And so you don't want people to pop in while they're live, even if no one's watching their stream. We don't want that, and so you can talk more freely this way. You can talk more openly, and you don't have to worry as much about what's going on if nobody's recording you or broadcasting you. And so I've literally had people come in and they'll say, "Oh, well, I'm gonna stream," and I'd be like, "You can't be in here and stream," and they'd be like, "Well, I'll just mute you guys." I'm like, "Then what's the point of being in here? Like, don't be in here and stream." And he's like, "Well, no one will be able to hear you." I'm like, "That's not the point." It's like you're trying to invite everybody over to a party and you've got a no shoes rule in the house, and the one person's like, "But my shoes are clean." There's like, "No shoes. Take your shoes off." And they're like, "But no, my shoes are clean." It's like, "Yeah, but if I let you wear the one pair of shoes, then everybody's going to feel weird about the fact that I made them take their shoes off." Like no, no shoes. Anyway, so
as a European, this whole concept is like, you just take shoes off. Why would you wear them inside?
Anyway, so the point is, like, just I've had people get upset with me because I had to tell them not to stream in my Discord in the channel and like fight with them, and then they wouldn't show up anymore. They'd feel like rejected or something. So I don't know if there's a good way to balance how you house your rules and stuff, but people are going to fight with you over where your boundaries are, and do what's best for you and for your community and your stream, and don't worry about the one or two people that are going to be upset with you because you've set a boundary or a rule they don't like. I've had to ban people because I had to have a rule in my Twitch chat because it was getting very political. People were arguing and fighting, and I'm like, you guys realize you're in Twitch chat, right? This is not a good place for a debate. Right, like,
and like kind of what we were saying, kind of what came up in chat a little bit too. It's like, you have to condition, right? It's like training a dog. I'm not implying that chat's a dog, but it's kind of it's kind of like one, because if you look at it this way, right? You have the microphone, you have the video. Chat just has this weird thing that they kind of throw back at you that lacks a whole lot of emotion and human cues.
Right.
It's just text. So in a lot of ways, it is like training a puppy, because the puppy can't quite articulate what it's feeling and thinking, right? So you have to condition chat to behave a certain way, and then you are going to have people who will push those buttons and push those boundaries because that's what they like to do. They're unfortunately, you will meet people out there whose sole existence is they want to be edgy and they want to push boundaries and they want to see what they can get away with.
Yep.
So you have to you have to have a plan for when that happens. And a good example, I'm going to name drop Jared a little bit. We had a thing today where he had to, gently but sternly tell a viewer, like, "Hey, listen, you're getting a little bit out of hand." Because like some people also don't realize that they are getting out of hand. That's the other thing. Sometimes chat goes off the rails and they don't realize they're off the rails. They're like Wile E. Coyote when he's gone off the cliff, but he hasn't looked down yet. Like, so the cartoon gravity's still working for them until they look down. So you have to be ready to police chat and remind chat, hey, these are boundaries. We set these for a reason. And kind of like what you were saying, Sonny, like you can't be selective. You can't let one person get away with something that you wouldn't let everyone else get away with.
Yep.
Otherwise, what's the point of having? Then your boundary is porous, and eventually people will find a way in.
Yep.
By that same token, I have been in chats where somebody was getting a little out of hand, or they needed to be reminded to not do something a couple of times, and then chat supporting the streamer was like, oh my god, why are people like this? Like, this is why we can't have nice things. And they started just piling on this one person over and over again. And the person just made like a genuine mistake. And it's kind of it's on you to like stop them from dogpiling and just making this person feel like crap.
Yep.
If they didn't deserve a ban to get kicked out, then they also don't deserve to like get bullied.
Right.
No, that's absolutely true.
True. They don't. Nobody should be bullied anyway, right? So
a leaderless group of people will devolve into a mob. That's just how how it is. And if you don't provide that rudder, if you don't provide that leadership, chat will just take it upon themselves to and again they think they're doing a good thing, right? In Pickles' example there, right? The rest of chat thinks they're doing a good thing. They're disciplining the non-believer. They're shunning the non-believer. But in reality, what they're doing is they're being bullies. Like
so
that's not okay either.
You have to take authority on both on both sides of that.
Yeah.
Take responsibility.
Yeah.
Full circle. It kind of gets back to something we haven't said yet, but this is like everyone knows this, but lead by example is the best way to make sure that things are kind of running the way you want, right? If you don't want to like act one way on stream and then like punish people when they're act like you. So like this is why knowing your rules and your boundaries is kind of a good idea, because you can get all over the place and send mixed messages if you allow yourself to let's say you play like competitive first person shooters or something and it makes you very angry and you get like upset and stuff, and then like you tell chat to cool it when they get upset. You just want to kind of make sure you have a healthy balance and relationship between who you're being on stream and what you expect from chat as well. So, but like going back to just generally being an authority, I think if you're going to think about how you express yourself as a streamer and how you express your authority, the best way to do it is through humility. You brought up Jared. So Jared's a good example of this. He tries to stay humble. It's a conscious effort. He thinks about what he needs to say. He tries not to be super emotional and overreact. He slows himself down on purpose. He takes a deep breath. Whatever you need to do to get that stuff, that like those are tools you're going to need as a streamer. It's just it is kind of the Wild West with chat and with viewers. You're going to end up with someone who is going to push a button at some point. Like we all have buttons to push, right? Like somebody's going to upset you. Somebody's going to say something that's going to make you upset at some point. Mm-hmm. Like being able to not go crazy and not fly off the handle and like keep your composure, I guess, so to speak, is important. Somebody in chat earlier said I was referring to Jordan Peterson, which, that's probably true. But so I am going to refer to Jordan Peterson directly. There is something he says about this that I think is wherever you stand with him doesn't matter. What he says here, I think people should consider. He likes to talk about the meaning of meekness. And a lot of people look at the word meek, and they think weak or like timid. And the way that Jordan Peterson kind of talks about meekness, I think the point is, whether it's true or not, I like this, that meekness in a historical context is more likely interpreted as a warrior who has his sword in its sheath. And it's a picture of somebody who's strong, who's dangerous, somebody who can wield that sword, but they've willingly put it away. And so like this is kind of a good picture. You want to be a strong, authoritative, source on your stream, confident in your abilities, but maybe you want to have the sword put away. Like you're a force to be reckoned with, but you know when to bring the sword out and when to keep it sheathed. And like, I think there's something to be said. You want to be somebody who is strong, and it requires humility to be able to approach a toxic person in your chat without like turning them into like the total villain of your chat. So, and then you won't have people pile on, right? So that was kind of how I wanted to wrap this up. So I think that kind of meekness, if we interpret it that way, you really want. I want every streamer to be a strong warrior who is ready for battle, but knows when to go to battle and has their sword away. Otherwise, you become the wrong kind of dangerous.
That humility also kind of goes also with empathy a bit.
Yeah.
Not everyone who pushes your button, not everyone who oversteps that bounds is doing that on purpose or maliciously.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's slowing down and not overreacting. Not, for example, not immediately banning somebody because they made a mistake, right? Because if you do that, if you become one of those streamers, and there's plenty out there who will ban somebody for the tiniest of infractions for no.
Have we all been banned for something stupid like this before? Have you all been banned?
I don't think I have, but
sorry.
for saying something that you didn't realize came off wrong. I've seen it happen to a lot of people. So this goes back to the rules and boundaries thing.
But I don't know if I've ever gotten banned from anywhere because I've probably never gone back to that place.
Well, yeah,
I've been timed out by bots for saying something.
Oh yeah, well yeah.
But that's pretty standard.
The bots get me all the time.
Yeah.
But like just like when you become that kind of streamer who just bans people willy nilly for the slightest like provocation, you come off as power hungry. You come off as a control freak. You come off as somebody who needs to dominate their chat at all times. Otherwise, when they're not in control, they're panicking and just not fun to watch.
Yeah,
and that's a problem. If you know that about yourself, that that you exhibit those qualities, learn not to learn empathy.
Meets is good at this, and I don't think people know it. It's very transparent. I only know because of our business relationship. How you once the camera's rolling and once you're live, you know how to like set up your boundaries and your rules for yourself so that you're not who you don't want to be on the internet. And when people get out of hand in your chat, I've never seen you like become part of the toxic behavior yourself, or have it like affect you in a way that it like destroys your composure. You're pretty good at keeping your composure, even when you're self-destructing because something's broken on your stream. But it's usually like a technical thing, right? It's not.
I guess just work with people with mental illness for 10 years, and you kind of just like go with the flow. Like I think it's a consequence of what I do for a living, frankly.
Yeah, true.
But it's not a skill that can't be learned, though. That's the thing.
That's true. That's very true.
Anyone can learn to do that.
So maybe
you have to take responsibility to learn.
I think that's a good way to circle back to our intro to this whole thing. It's
I'm full of circles tonight.
Where can you take responsibility? What kind of authority can you be as a streamer? Well, this kind. What about you, Pickles? What do you think about all this?
So going back to the idea of consistency with your boundaries and all of that, how you conduct your stream, and kind of the united front to maintain that authority, that goes for your mods as well. Like you all need to be on the same page about what's allowed and what's not. Because if you're on different pages, like somebody sees that mod they don't like in chat, like because they're quick with the ban hammer, like it can create like this weird imbalance and can make people not feel welcome there and stuff like that. And you also can't let your mods get away with stuff that you wouldn't let other people get away with, because then that also creates like this uncomfortable imbalance. Like, just like for me, I hold everybody to the same standards. So I don't know. I feel like that kind of creates a level playing field for where we all stand, and I think that's helpful.
Yeah, the mods thing is tricky. That's really tricky. Because now you're giving authority to other people in your stream and balancing that. That's really tricky. Also, yeah, what Fizzban said in the chat there is, yeah, Disney movies have a lot of like like little pictures like this that are like poignant and give you a good picture of it. But yeah,
huge problems too. But you know, there's some glimmers of light there too.
Yeah. So, but going back to the mods thing, mods. You give your mods authority, and right, you do want to be on the same page with them. And sometimes when you're a brand new streamer, if you're brand new, that takes a while to develop. Like what I'm kind of just rebooted my stream recently, and I've had. I would rather. I told the people that are modding, I would rather them over mod, and then I can like undo it, and them not to be upset if I like correct them, because I'd rather them like mute or silence or ban someone, and then me have to say, oh, you know, that you didn't need to ban you. That's okay. You don't have to ban that, or you don't have to stop that. So they can kind of have a learning curve of what I might accept and what I might not accept. But I'd rather them overdo it a little bit. That way, you know, I'd rather have to correct them from like doing something than be like, why did nobody ban that? Right? Like, so it is a tricky balance. That's a hard one, because people can't read your mind as a streamer. They have no idea what you're going to allow or accept. This is kind of why
delegating tasks and delegating authority is a real skill. It's what separates a good manager from a terrible manager. So a lot of people think they can do it, but they can't.
One of the things I like is that you can actually just set automod to like the highest, strictest level. And that kind of filters out everyone, and then you just permit the stuff that you want to permit, and then
how much work though?
It is, but I'd rather it filter everything and then allow it to hit chat after I allow it than to be upset that it hit chat and then have to disallow it. Because either way, you got to do work.
If you do that from the beginning, and if you've done that for a while, right, then you build up, right? You build up this thing where you've trained automod
a little bit, yeah,
to know what you want.
Sometimes the permitted terms only last a little while. I'm not sure what the settings are. It might be like a few days or something. But either way, it's like a lose-lose, right? You either set automod up and then have to permit the stuff that you want to permit, or you leave it off and you have to ban the stuff that you don't want. And I don't know. They both require like. It's a perspective thing, and it's your choice. But I will say this: but also, Twitch likes it if you set automod high. Twitch likes that. They like that a lot. So if you're looking for a partner, or if you're looking for working with Twitch, you could kind of like that's something that they're looking for is streamers that have automod set pretty high, so level 3 or 4.
But it's also that also kind of goes to when we go back to responsibility is. You as the streamer are the end, right? The last man standing, right? So you do have to kind of also be ready to mod your stream. You can't just pass that completely off to someone else to do. You have to be ready to also take action. So
okay, we've gone on too long. It's time to end it. We could talk about this stuff forever. We'll be back next week. And is it the 16th next week? Am I?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So next week's supposed to be a special episode.
It's the day before St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, wow. Boy.
Ooh, it's the day after my birthday.
Ooh.
Oh, man. We all have birthdays this month. Okay.
I unfortunately will not be here next week, but special episode though. Aha.
Yeah, that's true. So we'll have a special guest next week. If you guys want, if you're not a part of the Infinite Quality community and you're a Twitch affiliate, come join us, infinitequality.live to apply. I have a ton of YouTube videos on how to fix stuff. If you really want to make your stream look good, go to the IQ YouTube channel, Infinite Quality Live on YouTube.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Go, say that louder. Say that so much louder.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
That was so loud.
Hit that bell,
All right, guys. See you in the next one.
Pickles is a Disney character.
I was invented by Disney. That's true.